Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Circle Up and Get Real. I let myself down last week, not anyone else, because I don't even know if anybody noticed, but I didn't do a podcast last week. I had a really, really busy week, and so there will be a gap in my however many episodes I have had, six seasons of my podcast because I didn't put out a podcast episode last week. It's funny because I've gotten really used to doing this, putting something out every week. And while no one else will notice, I notice that there's a gap. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that right up front. I do this more for me, I think, than I do for anybody else because I'm not the greatest at asking people to subscribe or to follow or promote. So I think it's great. I love this platform. I love who I get to be on this platform, and I love the conversations that are had. I love that people are watching, or thank you, three of you who are here right now live, or are watching later. And I love that even silently or quietly, there might be a difference being made in the world about who we're being in our relationships and our conversations. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. I've had a lot of conversations. Well, I was going to say this week. I mean, every week I have a lot of conversations, but last week was especially busy, and there were a lot of opportunities for different conversations, both professionally and personally. I was with a client for 2 days at the beginning of the week, and then I was with a different client later in the week. And my job with those clients was to facilitate. And to facilitate means to make easier. And so my job was to make the conversations easier. Depending on the topic, we went in different directions, but my job was pretty much the same. And what I'm recognizing about that is, as a facilitator, I can hold space for wisdom to emerge. It's what I know I am here to do. And I can also add wisdom if it seems appropriate. So I don't have to only always ask the questions. I can also share insights. And that's where I've learned over the years of my career how to do that a little bit better. I have to give thanks to John Miller, QBQ guy, who allowed me to work with his organization for 10 years. He's very careful about the distinction between training and facilitating in his program. And I recognized early on in his program that my job was not to do the training, because he does that at first it was a VHS tape. That's how long I've been doing it. And then it became a DVD, and he did the training. It was his program. It was his platform. It was his container of personal accountability. My job was to guide the conversation based on what John was sharing in his training. And so I learned from him indirectly. I think maybe I've met John one time in real life, but for 10 years I've gotten really, really good at his material because I've done it over and over and over and over and over again. I built much of my career on that program, which I don't even remember when we started that. But back when we started it, probably the mid 2010, 2005-ish, was kind of, I'm going to say cutting edge. It's old material. There's nothing new about the material. It goes all the way back to ancient times. But having people in organizations actually get serious about their own personal accountability was kind of new. And that taught me a lot about that content, personal accountability. Because how can you facilitate things over and over and over again without actually learning it yourself? And so I thank John Miller for that opportunity. And now I've continued to grow and moving in my own direction about mostly communication and leadership, which is now taking on a form of corporate and organizational culture. Despite the advice I was given by a former colleague a few years ago, don't ever talk about culture in work, which I found interesting. And now it's where I'm choosing to go, because I think culture is key. And if we don't I mean, the funny thing about culture is it could be a touchy-feely, kind of squishy concept or topic to talk about, but it's really the lifeblood and the soil that we plant any seeds in. And so if we don't acknowledge culture, it's happening anyway. So if we could be on purpose about whatever the air we're breathing is or the water we're swimming in, we use whatever analogy you want. If we can get really on purpose about that, I think we have a ton of opportunity to enhance it, make it, not make isn't the right word, to allow it to become a creative advantage for our organizations. Because when people feel heard and appreciated and acknowledged and gotten in a corporate setting, they practice that, allowing of their own creativity and their own wisdom to come out in a safe space. They become better parents, better community members. Everything happens because don't we spend most of our time at work? I think, if our days, 24-hour days, are divided into 3 buckets, one bucket is sleeping, one bucket is outside of work, and one bucket is at work. And what if we are the common denominator between those 3 buckets? We, us, the person we're talking about. If I can get better at something I'm doing over and over on purpose, that could enhance the other 2 buckets. Well, maybe it wouldn't enhance. Maybe it would enhance sleep, now that I think about it. Maybe if you have an opportunity to not worry about things so much, you have better sleep. And then sleep enhances the other 2 buckets too. So in that way, I kind of think maybe communication is the glue that holds it all together. And if we get better at the conversations we're having, we get better at holding the space. I know that seems like a weird concept, but allowing the conversation to happen without feeling the need to direct it or push it or force it is a skill we can get better at. You can do it with your kids. Allow that conversation to happen in the environment you've put in place. What could happen if your kids feel safe sharing with you things that might surprise you? Last night I had a conversation which was just a delightful conversation, which I didn't expect. It was a friend of mine from the west coast of Canada who we've actually done a couple of podcast recordings, but we haven't shared them at all. My friend's name is Norbert, and he and I still are planning to enhance our Purple Dialogue container so that we can have conversations that, I was going to say meld, but that bring opposing points of view together and see where the common denominators are. That's kind of the purpose of that. And I haven't heard from him in a while, which led me to believe that he was really busy. He's a business owner. He's got a lot going on in his own life. But all of a sudden he popped up and said, "Hey, are you available for a conversation?" So I went out to my deck and we had a delightful conversation about politics mostly, and about different points of view and how he sees the world from his perspective and how I see the world from my perspective. And it was really interesting because we uncovered some things that we didn't know about each other in the dialogue last night. And we both agreed that while it's hard to carve out time to do this, he said, "I just can't not." So he took on a new role in his organization, and in the next couple of weeks, hopefully 3 weeks, he'll have things more in order so that he can carve out time for this. He feels it's really important, not only to him, but to the clients and possible audiences we could create from the podcast. And the beauty for me is his company is a digital marketing company, so he knows what he's doing as far as marketing goes. I've never been great at that, and I'd like to get better at it. So that conversation enhanced me. It enhanced me last night. It gave me joy in the moment. And while we didn't necessarily come from the same perspective as we were talking about politics, we found so many places where we were so close together in our understanding of things. And the beauty of Norbert and what he creates for me is a space that I feel safe asking questions about things I maybe should already know. And so we both were like, what if we had this space where we could feel safe to say, I don't really understand why this thing with Israel and Iran is so important. If that were the case, where did this come from? Why did this happen? And we can both explore and say, well, here's what I think. And then he shared some resources with me, and we talked about why it was really important, politically. I'm not going to get into that here, but I left feeling more heard, more seen, more gotten, more appreciated, and smarter, because he shared things with me not in a way that said, you're stupid, you should know this, but in a way that said, had you thought about this? And here's some references, here's some information, dig in yourself, see about this. And that was just delightful. I don't know what else to say. And I wonder how many times we have the opportunity to have those conversations and we pass them by. I could have not accepted the message. He sent a message and said, are you available right now? Yeah, I was available. And yes, I did want to interact with him. We used, what did we use? Messenger video call. And so it was really easy I saw him, I saw his environment, I saw who he was in the conversation. So I really like video, even when we've only met in person one time. So it's really cool when you feel that connection to people you're not even in a physical location with. And it really reinforces to me that energy is non-geographic. When you feel a connection with someone, that energy goes beyond physical barriers. I remember that from COVID when we had virtual coffee hours, and all people would come from all over I think we had world, actually. Marianne, yes, you were from Belgium, and we had people from all over the world connecting in that moment. And it felt like we were together, because sometimes you're together with people you don't necessarily choose. And then in that space of the people you don't necessarily choose, I'm talking about things like coworkers or coffee shops or whatever it might be, it's possible to have your energy taken from people, or to have gravity pull you down, or not buoy you up, because it just is what it is. The energy is all around us all the time, and if we're not aware of it, it can get hijacked from us. And so some of those conversations they're happening whether we're aware of them or not. And as we become more aware, as we become more conscious, I guess, of our place in those conversations and those interactions, I really believe that leads us to more connection and, I guess, more choice, right? Maybe I choose not to be connected. Maybe I choose not to be in this space, not because I'm judging it, but because energetically it's just not a match. And that doesn't mean, it doesn't have to mean anything. Really nothing means anything until we put meaning to it anyway. So if we can look around us and understand that, like culture, as I was talking about earlier, culture's agnostic. It doesn't mean anything. I think there are people out there who believe that the word culture only implies something positive. Like if your culture is a place where people want to be, then good culture is the culture we would aspire to be a part of. And maybe that's true, but that doesn't mean that culture doesn't exist when people don't feel great. That's still a culture. The culture is the way it is around here. And it could be really heavy. It could be really oppressive. It could be really negative, I guess. That doesn't mean it's not a culture. And so addressing that and recognizing and noticing some of those things is just a way to start with your own personal communication first. What am I telling myself? What am I recognizing for myself? What am I observing about my surroundings? And if we can learn to do that without putting on our own layer of judgment, it should be different than it is. What could be available to us in a conversation? What if we had the opportunity to say, someone else is seeing the same issue that I'm looking at, but they're looking at it from a different perspective? It's like that old 6 and 9. Like if there's a number on the ground and we're standing on two sides of it, from your side it could look like a 6, and from my side it could look like a 9, and both of us could fight till the death that it's a 6, it's a 9. Well, had you thought about walking around to the other side and going, oh, on your side it really is a 6? Huh. Never thought about that. Somewhere in our upbringings, we've learned, I guess, that it's not okay to change our minds. It's not okay to learn something and then go, oh, wow, never thought about it like that before. I don't know where that came from, but what would the world, your world, I mean, let's just micro it down. What would your world be like if you started with that and you said, I understand you're upset about this. Help me understand what it is that had you be upset. Tell me more about that. Now, I don't have to, I may not agree. I may not have that same perspective. We're all individual. We're all unique. We've all come to our point of view from different places. Even my sister and I, we were raised by the same parents, same DNA, same everything. I just came 2 years earlier than she did. And so I have different experiences than she does. And if we both look at the way the other is and say, you need to be like you need to see like I do, which we don't, we get along great. But wouldn't it behoove us all to say, oh, wow, it could be different. Oh, I didn't take the time to take a look at it from that perspective. I just think there's so much possibility, especially right now when sometimes it feels like things are crashing down and the world is chaotic and crazy and messed up and whatever judgment we put on it. The world is what it is. It just is what it is. It means nothing till we give it meaning. And so by saying it's chaotic or it's bad or it's wrong or we're whatever, how does that leave any room for a creative, iterative conversation? It doesn't. So I'm practicing this, and I guess what I'm doing is practicing what I choose to get better at instead of allowing gravity to tell me what I need to get better at because I do it over and over again. Maybe the distinction for me is remaining conscious as much as I can. Conscious is above the line. Open, curious, committed to learning. Boy, you guys at 15 Commitments to Conscious Leadership, thank you for that. I should send you a note, a card, because that has become such an important distinction for me. Above the line, open, curious, committed to learning. Below the line, closed, defensive, committed to being right. And I notice that so much more now. And I choose differently because I don't know about you, but man, I don't want people to take away my ability to choose things. I want freedom to choose. I don't want to have things dictated to me. This is the way it has to be. I might make that choice. I might choose that thing, but not because you made me. I think I'll resist it if you tell me I have to, even if it's what I would choose. And so I wonder how much we do that to people. You need to believe the way I believe. You're stupid if you don't. Well, allow the person to come to that conclusion on his or her own. What if that were the way? It's pretty hard to argue with your own idea. And if people can come to the realization on their own, and then we together pursue it a little bit more, wouldn't that, I don't know, to me that just seems so obvious now because I'm seeing it on the other side. I don't think I knew that before me being, I don't know when this journey began for me. Actually, I would do March of 2003. March of 2003, when I completed the Landmark Forum, which was just a game changer for me. Oh, man, that gave me so much context, a whole new way of thinking of communication, and a technology. They called it a technology for conversation and dialogue. That for me was just a complete game changer. And I am practicing, well, I'd like to say, I think I'm practicing every day, being more open. And there are things I'm not great at yet, because there are things that still frustrate and upset me. I know that, and I am aware of that. I'm aware of my body language, even in virtual settings like this. I'm aware when I get, closed and defensive. I'm aware that I can't hide that very well. And I guess I don't really want to hide that very well, because I want to be in the space where I can say to somebody, I don't understand this, or this is hitting something in me that's causing me to close down, and I want to know what that is so that I can open back up. And sometimes it's not easy. Yet if I get to choose, if I am in charge of my own choices, then wouldn't I want to choose something that has me feel enlivened, like I did last night with a conversation with Norbert? And by the way, a lot of other places. Enlightened Leadership Lab is always a place where I feel enlightened and enlivened. And I'd love to invite you to check that out. If there's any part of you that wants to spend an hour a week in a space that can cause you to feel challenged every now and then has you look in the mirror and go, why did that challenge me? What was that for me? And you can actually put that into the space and you can say, I just felt challenged here. And I'm just curious what I could do differently. I mean, that's just a possibility. I don't know that we ever have done that yet, but we could in the Enlightened Leadership Lab. Right now, we're talking about synchronicity and how synchronicity shows up in your life when you are in alignment with whatever it is you're looking for. It's a fascinating conversation. We're in week 4 of probably 8 in this series. And what we do in the lab is put topics and themes out there, and then we move into those themes from our own lived experience. It's really a fascinating group. And I'd invite you to check it out at enlightenedleadershiplab.com. I'll put it in the show notes here too. Those are the kinds of situations and opportunities that if people don't know there's something out there for them, how could they choose it? And that's my responsibility to share that. Because if people are feeling that the world is crashing in on them and they don't have a space where they can feel understood and gotten, how could they if they don't know about it? So that's one opportunity, and I'm really committed to adding more of these kinds of opportunities into the world because I don't want to leave this part of my existence feeling like I left something on the table. I want to leave it all there. I want to have no regrets for what I did. If I have regrets, I suppose they'll be for what I didn't do. Like I didn't climb Mount Everest. Or I have no desire to do that, by the way. But if I have any regrets at the end, I hope they're for things I didn't do, not for things I did. Because I want to have said, I tried it. I did what I believe I came here to do. And those are just kind of my way of looking at that. So with all of that said, notice for yourself the conversations that are happening around you. Notice whether those are conversations you want to be part of. I know I think about the Dr. Rick commercials, Progressive, the young people turning into their parents, new homeowners turning into their parents. And I find those really funny. At first I thought it was really funny, and then I went, but I'm the parent. Oh my gosh, I do those things. Because I do. I am very interested in connecting with people. And I think I might have told you about my train trip a few weeks ago. I found it fascinating to have conversations with people. I think that's what you do when you go first class on a train. You know you're going to be seated with people in the dining car. You know you're going to meet people. Or if you choose not to, you can stay in your own room and you can isolate yourself if that's what you want to do too. But that was really a fun part of the trip. Who did I meet? What conversations did I have? That's just me. That's who I am. And I feel like my life was enhanced and expanded because of the people I had a chance to connect with more and the people I met whom I may never see again. That's me. So watch if you're feeling sort of restricted or like you've lost some of your ability to choose for yourself. Just start noticing this and maybe overhear something in a coffee shop and add to it. And notice if the person says, shut up, be quiet. Well, then you just notice that person's coming from a different perspective. Maybe you can say something about somebody's shoes and open a conversation. I don't know. But you could try and you could just see, like, does this enhance my life or does this restrict it? I don't know. We won't know if we don't try. So with that, thanks to the viewers who are here live. Thanks for the reactions. Thanks, everybody. I look forward to being with you next week, and I promise I will put a podcast up next week, whether or not I have a guest. I will make that commitment. It's mostly to me. I know you probably aren't sitting there going, but there wasn't a podcast last week. There will be. Thanks, everybody. And as always, go find a way to get real this week. Radical, energized, authentic, and learning focused. Talk to you again. Thanks.